Hello, welcome to Podcast on the Porch with Carrie
and Teresa
with a special guest,
Maria Walker.
So we're going to talk a little bit more today about the consolidation stuff that we were talking about last week and the committees. So Maria, why don't you go ahead and explain what you do.
So I am the chairperson for the City of Glendive Study Commission. And so right now our main focus is educating the public on the options they have and getting the public to get involved with us and the county, just to tell us where they'd like to see Glendive go in the future.
So Maria, we'll just update you too. So last week we I explained how I was on the county government review, and then I said the members of the city government review, but maybe you could tell us who that was too. And I just kind of explained the background about how Montana does this every 10 years. So, and then Carrie was talking about what kind of her opinion on consolidation, and that's when we decided we needed you hear from the city government review to tell us things as well. So, but who's also on that review with you?
So our vice chairman is Peggy House. Did I pronounce
Haas?
Haas?
Yeah.
I always say her name slightly wrong. Sorry. And then Mike Brown is also on the committee. Our committee only has 3. It was set up for 5, but only 3 people ran. So we're 2 people. Don Brown. Okay. Sorry.
Mike
and our
Dryden.
ex officio is Mike Dryden.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And he's the city representative.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So can you explain to us, both of you, why we have to have an ex officio sit around?
Because you want to have somebody that knows the history of the town and how the government is currently running, and hopefully they also have some kind of budgetary knowledge that you can use.
And so our ex officio for the county is Commissioner Brad Mitchell. And so he comes to our meetings, and that is, for his purpose of, if we have questions also about like the processes, or what do you guys do right now if certain, situations or scenarios come up. And so he's there to answer those questions for us.
Okay, so do you feel that you're getting truthful information out of your representatives?
He's only been to 2 of our meetings.
Okay.
So that's only half of the meetings, or less than half. No, that's half, because we started in February. And we have not really answered questions because we decided, before we started discussing the different types of government, we were going to spend some time setting up our outreach programs. We had to set up a budget, and then we were going to, we decided on alternative locations. So we're meeting at the Kearney Center in the hospital basement. And we did that because we wanted people to feel like it was neutral territory, and we wanted it to be more on even ground, not like we're in charge, but it's an equal kind of round table conversation. We also let our public, after discussion of each topic, make comments,
Okay.
which is kind of a deviation from the city and county norm, because we just think our whole drive is public feedback, engagement. And so basically all we've done for 5 meetings is figure out the survey we're going to send out to the town, the questions we want to ask, the things we find most important, figure out, what outreaches we want to do. So we've tried to contact civic organizations. We tried calling the Republican Party. After two texts, no responses from them. I can't get a number for the Democratic Party, or I'd call them. And then we sort of reached out to churches to see if we could put flyers in the lobby or maybe set up a table and answer questions. But they kind of relegated that to Mr. Williams, and he said the churches weren't willing to do it. And I'm still trying to get in touch with the VFW. So that's kind of been our focus for the last 4 or 5 meetings.
Have you gotten a lot of feedback in your meetings?
So we actually have had, in my opinion, really good attendance, because we've had 2 or more people every meeting attend. And the main feedback we've had is consolidation or no change. And the people that have really said no change are two city employees that were at our very first meeting in City Hall, and the two commissioners that were there. And then the consolidation, we've had 3 or 4 people in it, and then we've had 2 people who didn't really have an opinion, they just wanted to come see what was happening.
Okay.
And then we've had some public comment in email form, which had nothing to do with the government study. It was just complaining about us moving the meetings, and then that we would offer snacks. But we voted not to do that anymore because they weren't being eaten, so there's no sense to keep doing it.
Yeah. Completely understand on that. Because okay, so last week we were talking about multiple people's conversations and stuff that we've heard throughout the community and stuff. And I myself have attended numerous city council meetings, and I really think that they put the cart before the horse on multiple things, because you're supposed to talk about your old business before you vote on stuff. And it seems like they go right to voting, but public comment is kind of like washed out the window. And I've said this numerous times that it seems like your voices are never being heard. So it's very nice that you're actually allowing people to talk after each subject, because I feel, and I know numerous other people do, that our city government and our county government don't listen to our voices, because I've been to both meetings. I'll never forget when Brad Mitchell looked me in the face and said, "We got approved for the money anyway, so we're buying it." So it was like, well, that's nice. You talked about this all through email before you put it out to your constituents. The same thing with city, well, we already talked about it, so we're just going to do it. Well, cool beans.
Because they make a lot of their decisions in the committee meetings. So if something goes to committee, like the street committee, the FUPR committee, the personnel committee, the ordinance committee.
So now we're talking city, just so that our
City,
listeners
this is separate.
We have 3 listeners, by the way, and we're excited. Shout out to listener number 3 who felt slighted at last week's podcast. But so shout out to you. But so with the FUPR, that's city. Yeah.
So this is city committees.
Which I knew they had the committees. I've been to
There's usually 4 committee members there plus the mayor. So that's 5 out of 9 positions.
Right, and
which is not a quorum, because 6 makes the quorum. But if you have 5 people saying this is what we should do, and you take it to the committee, it's going to be pretty hard to outvote them. So I feel like once the committee comes to the table and says this is what we recommend, the rest of the council kind of goes along with it.
Well, but here's the thing, though. Technically, it's only 3 per committee. It's the 2 council members and the mayor. But they do 2 committees on the same day.
Oh.
So to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Okay.
So.
And I've lived all over the United States.
Yes.
What I have seen is committees are usually formed with citizens and council people. And when I looked at, because I've looked at other municipalities, compared them, the 6 above us and the 6 below us, which, by the way, the 6 in population above us and the 6 in population below us, only 3 of them have separate municipalities. The rest of them let the county run their municipalities. But anyway, the ones that I looked at that actually had separate kind of entity municipalities close to ours, and then I have curious looked at Anaconda Deer Lodge, because I'm looking at all forms of government. Most of their committees are combinations of council people and actual citizens. And so people can volunteer to be on these committees, and it not just, so they get more input.
Yeah. Which is great, because if you're going to spend a taxpayer dollar, you should have more input than just the 2 people sitting at the table within the committee. Just like, let's go back to the scale we were talking about that Frank's from overseas. He spent, $98,000 on a scale, then had to pay freight charges, when he could have just went over to North Dakota and went to Bobcat and paid the same price, got an American-made product with a product that has a warranty, and they're right next door, our neighbor. Instead, we went overseas. By the time we got the product, it's out of date, and they were saying that they now have to do other things. So those are like costs and things that I think that should go in front of the people paying for it, versus I'm just going to make the decision to spend $100 and some odd $1,000.
So generally, those kind of decisions, at least from what I've seen, is the department heads put in, we want to purchase this, here's the cost. And then they vote on if they agree with the cost or not. They don't actually like micromanage what's being purchased. And so I feel like the buck stops with the head of the department on that one. I don't know that particular issue. You know,
that was just an example.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, here's the thing, being on this committee, people have come out of the woodwork to tell me all of their stories about the city, and some stories about the county. None of them have been favorable. 6 of them I can find paper trails and prove. The other 5 I can't find a paper trail, so I kind of dismiss those. I don't really repeat any of them. But I understand why people are disheartened and they don't want to be involved. But I'm telling you, at this point with study committees, this is your opportunity. Because I hear people all the time saying, this isn't working, it's totally wrong, I don't like this. Well, this study committee, this 10-year session is your opportunity to make real change in the community. And whether you're for consolidating the city and the county, you got to speak to the county and the city. Or if you're for the city needs to be run manager council form, then you got to communicate that. Or if you think everything's going great, you got to communicate that. Because otherwise you're putting the fate of Glendive, the city of Glendive, and Dawson County in 8 people's hands. And those are the 8 people that were not elected because we had just enough on each committee sign up. So just threw our hat in the rings. And sadly, everybody kind of has an agenda. I've been kind of sad about that because I signed up with the sole purpose of I live paycheck to paycheck. And it seems like a lot of people who make decisions in this town don't have that experience. And so decisions are made kind of in a bucket of what they live in. And they don't consider the average person. And so I'm a big put your money where your mouth is. So I was like, well, I love politics. I love learning things. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for this. If I get elected, great. If I don't, I don't. And then I end up on being the chairman. And as I'm talking with people, you know, people don't want change because they want to be able to run for their county commissioner job at $60,000 a year and their benefits. And people don't want change because they want to control the council to make decisions for them and their friends. These aren't my opinions. These are things people have come to me and spoken about. And I keep telling the people, you have to go out. You have to go to the county meetings. You have to come to the city meetings. If you don't want to come, you have to send your emails telling us what you want to do. So if you want change, you have to be voicing it. And there's no backlash to it. There's no anything because the committee people are just here to serve them. And that's all we talked about during training. Because you're here to serve the people. You're here to serve the people. You're here to serve the people.
Well, and I've heard from multiple people that have come to me at my work and talked to me. The reason they haven't spoken out at any of the meetings, city or county, is retaliation.
Yes.
And we live in a community that does retaliate. We've seen it ourselves. We saw it on Zooms. We have seen it on the Facebook Lives I did. It's amazing to me the things that have come out. And you are right. There is that little bowl of people that run this community that have a never-ending amount of money. And I said it last week of, why are we not looking at how expensive it is to live in Dawson County? And people are like, well, I don't want to say anything because I'll lose my job, or my wife will lose her job, or so-and-so will lose her job. And I get it, but at what point are we going to say, okay, you know what? It's not okay to have to work 2 jobs to put a roof over your head. It's not okay that you can't afford to buy groceries when you need groceries. I mean, the tax, what we pay for property taxes is insane for a community that has nothing to show for it. Why do we have 3 commissioners that are sitting in beautiful seats that only have to work 1 day a month for $60,000 a year with their full benefits? Now, the city council members only make $200 some odd bucks a month. You got a mayor that makes like $26,000 a year. Granted, that's not a lot of money. We all know that. You can't live off of $26,000 a year.
Yeah.
But when you look at the bigger picture of things, the money that we're spending on people to make decisions that aren't making decisions that are great for us for our infrastructure and bringing things into our community. And I mean, you sit on the economic development, and I mean, you guys are pushing to try to get people to come out here. I mean, you did the trails.
Yep, doing trails and just promoting our I guess the treasures that we have here,
Exactly. And we are in a great location with the amount of highways and interstates that hook up to Glendive.
Well, I've said this at the committee meeting a bunch of times publicly. We are on a main interstate and the main highway to Canada and to Williston. This town should not be dying. Right. And I've never lived on a town that's on the interstate that started at 5,000 or 6,000 and is down to 4,800. And I said it's a weird situation to me. I also have emphasized the fact that the average medium household income in Dawson County is $70,000. But they say there's a huge gulf between upper amount of money and lower amount of money. So they believe the true working class medium income is $43,000. And when I tell people that, they're like, no. And I said, I get you and your friends make a couple $100,000 a year. But the average Dawson County, City of Glendive resident doesn't make that. They make 43,000 or less.
Exactly. He don't make no 43,000.
I said, I feel like, again, a lot of decisions are made in a vacuum of my for and no more. So what's reality to me? Which I get that. Everybody makes decisions that way. It's very hard for people to step outside of themselves and say, this is what's best for me, but I'm not going to do what's best for me. I'm going to do what's best for other people.
Right.
And I feel like the study committees are one of those places where we're not all worried about ourselves. We're worried about, hey, where do we want to see Dawson County and the city of Glendive in 10 years? I know for me, when I look at the study committee, it's an opportunity to shape the government for the future we want to see.
For our children and ourselves.
Yeah. Well, so the children want to stay here.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Teresa and I are talking about. I mean, my child was gone the day after he graduated. Gone. 2 months before he graduated, he already enlisted.
Yeah.
So this next weekend, on Saturday, we have a community engagement, and so I'm going to be hanging out with Maria. We're going to have city and county government review information available at a table at Buzzer Days. And so we'll be out there, and it is basically just getting out the information. I think I'm going to copy off like a copy of the articles from the newspaper that I'll have those available, that the county commission put in the ranger review. And then, we have mutual educational information that came out of the MSU local government training that all of us did. And we'll have all that available. And I was just on the way over here, since Maria beat both of us to my porch, I was telling her that I think we'll also just have some blank paper so that if somebody looks at something and would like to do a public comment but can't get to either one of our government reviews, that we can have them, even if it's a couple sentences that they'd like to write down, and we can do that, and then we can utilize that we'll take those to both of our commission meetings to but it's really important right now to engage the commission. So like last week we were talking about who is on the city government review, which is Maria and Peggy and Dawn. And so reaching out to them about what is happening in the city is great. And then in the county, Rick Holden is the chair. Jesse Schaff is the vice chair, Linda Baker, Alan McCrae, and myself. But I know that Rick Holden has been gracious about wanting to make sure that he can, gather up the information, and so can give the information to any of us, and we'll make sure that it's shared.
And I think the biggest thing too is that technology is huge now. Shooting an email is one of the easiest things most of us can do. And so I think that we should, what's your email that you want people to email?
It's city.
Wasn't it City of Glendive at?
City of Glendive Study at yahoo.com. Sorry, I had to look.
You're right.
Because I made a generic email so that if they wanted access, they could access it, but also so that people didn't have to give up their personal information.
Yeah.
And
Rick says RICH.
RICH at midrivers.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I did my emails because I work odd hours, and so I can never make meetings. And I think sometimes I can get more said when I write versus talking because I forget.
Yeah.
Everybody has that, you know.
So the city's going to have a survey coming out into July, beginning of August, for everyone in this that has city water to fill out. Or we may station it at public places around town so people can fill it out. And the one thing I want to tell people is you may live in the city limits, but you're also part of the county. So if you have an opinion for the city, you should probably also share that opinion with the county.
Correct.
Because you're kind of double dipping in this scenario of opinions and what you want to see for the future.
Well, yes, because I remember when we were talking about the forms of government, and I was telling you the form of government I would like to see, you told me make sure you also tell the county because it affects the county also.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that our viewers need to know is that you got to make sure you email to both. So, I mean, you might as well throw both email addresses on top of that email when you shoot it on out, and, you know, everybody can read it and get a copy of it, and it can be talked about at the meeting. Now, when you read emails, do you state people's names? Because I'm sure that's one thing that people, so that is one thing that has to be stated, so I'm sure.
And we've, like, for the city, we've only had consolidation and then, like, maybe one person say manager. And then, like I said, the first meeting where all the commissioners and the city employees were, they all kind of were like, stay the same. But I know the county at the meeting, one of the meetings I was at, they had a letter from a citizen who wanted consolidation, and then they had a guy come and speak on manager council form. And I think there's a benefit. I mean, there's a benefit to all the forms of government. It's just what you want to see. You know, manager council form is great because then you hire somebody who has a background and a degree in running either a large business or a municipality, and they can make changes to see growth. And then the council just has to deal with serving the people and kind of voting on the ordinances and the spending, whereas the manager runs the city. All the department heads report to him. They do all the HR. They do all the firing. The council's involved in the hiring. That's it. And so it's more hands-off. And kind of the way the city ordinances are passed now, the mayor is a figurehead and all of the power lies with the council. MCA Co allows it to go either way, but they've already set the ordinances so that that's how it is. And then how the county's set up is they're just councilmen. And then they have a presiding officer. Did I say that? Is that what they call
They
them?
have they pick a chair.
A chair.
A chair of the county commissioners.
So let me ask you this. So looking at the consolidation, have you put together numbers of how much money it would save taxpayers if we consolidated? Because you would be consolidating your public works, your water department, your road department, your police officers, your fire department. I'm sure I'm missing a department.
It would eliminate the fire department because counties are set up in a fire district. I always say it wrong. A fire district does not require a full-time staff. So it'd be a more volunteer basis. So it eliminate all expense except for insurance and paying people when they go out on calls.
Right.
Which I think would be great because then that would allow us to hire a full-time ambulance person to work days because that's when we have trouble getting the volunteers. From what I've been told.
It might be the person running the ambulance that the issue is from.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. Like, that's one of the benefits of not having grown up here is I don't know a lot of the history. Oh, but I mean, like, and I don't have like the same like when you say a name, I don't have a visceral response of good or bad because most of the time I'm like, I don't know who that is. So it works out great because it's a unbiased opinion from an observation standpoint and just looking at what I see when I, watch the council meetings, review minutes, things like that. So it would eliminate that. In order to create the same kind of situation that Butte and Anaconda have is we would have to create a charter that says we don't have to have a sheriff, or they would have to pass some ordinance that said that we could have an elected police chief. So it would run like a sheriff's office, but this avoids the state stipulation that says if the sheriff makes $120,000, the deputies have to make 93% of that. So it keeps your cost a little lower, and we could actually pay officers probably better than what the city is paying current police officers.
So technically you would be getting rid of the city police department and we would be keeping our deputies.
But you'd have to add more deputies.
Correct.
And so
because we also do Ritchie and Bloomfield.
Yes. And so
Deer Creek. And,
like in talking to the sheriff, he said it would probably take 18, because I just asked questions, because apparently they looked at doing this 4 years ago. It would take 18 to 20 deputies plus a sheriff to run the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think right now they have 14. So we'd be just changing the officers over basically, and just putting them under one structure. And so then you would have a couple deputies that were only assigned to the town type situation.
Which would save us money because you're not technically paying two department heads and two.
It would only save you money if you weren't electing a sheriff, if you were electing a police chief, because of the wage restrictions, wage stipulations from the state.
Which is interesting because at city council they said the same thing for the police chief though. That
it was a model. It wasn't a legal. There wasn't legal requirements with that.
So they just used the model.
They used the
because
model
they did that with the chief, the assistant chief, and the detective.
Yeah.
They did the same model mock-up that the sheriff's used.
It,
which is kind of interesting because the police chief actually makes more money than the sheriff does.
Yeah. But the reason they do is because of the salary stipulation for the deputies. So if we pay the sheriff what he should be getting paid, which is $80,000 to $100,000, then you have to pay those deputies $65,000 and above, to make the numbers.
Which I'm going to tell you from working on that side of the house moons ago, they deserve it.
Well, and I agree, but I'm just telling you why it's not happening.
Yeah.
It would also, combining that, it would eliminate, we have 11 council members right now. If we could consolidate it, it would go down. In my mind, we would have 5 wards. We're only 10,000 people. One person can represent 2,000 people. And so then you would have that. If we're looking at consolidation, I think manager council member form is probably the better of the situation. But I'm open to whatever people want. It would eliminate 2 court systems, because everybody's like, oh, they consolidated the courts. And I was like, yes, the city's still paying for courts.
Right.
It would eliminate 2 maintenance departments. So yes, in the first 3 years of consolidation, there would be about 30 people in this town that would not have jobs, because it would be consolidated to one group. Mm-hmm. There would be some equipment we could sell off, some buildings we could sell off, things that we're holding money in that we wouldn't necessarily need. So the benefits of consolidation is, yes, I have looked at the budget. I spent 4 hours looking at the budget. We're missing some top-down numbers from one particular group to compare because, well, this year hasn't ended, so I won't give those to you. Well, yeah, but you put a projection into the state, so you should give those to us. And so I'm like, it's fine. I may, when June is over, go back and look at 2023 to compare, because those numbers are done and nobody can say that they're different. So we'll look at those. But yes, I have compared, and I'm kind of shocked at the budgets, I'm going to be honest with you, in comparing them, because what I did is I took the city of Glendive, Dawson County, and Anaconda Deer Lodge, and I didn't do this by myself, I did this with other people, and I do have a CPA who's willing to do a comparison for us, but it'll cost about $200 an hour. And so going forward, that might be something to look into, but this is just something, when I was studying all the forms of government, I wanted to see, is this really going to save some money?
And so Anaconda Deer Lodge, the reason that you compared to Anaconda Deer Lodge was because
population size, we are about the same. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 counties that are consolidated in the state of Montana, Anaconda Deer Lodge and Butte Silverbow. Sorry, I always say it backwards.
No, you got it.
And so Anaconda Deer Lodge is the same population size. Now, we are 2/3 larger in land mass than they are, which is why we couldn't get away with, they have about the same sheriff's deputies we have now. And so, like, the questions I get asked about consolidation are, will it save us money? Preliminary looking at this budget, yeah, I think it would save us money. It would definitely save us payroll, because like Anaconda Deer Lodge has 36 full-time employees. According to the budget they submitted to the state, the city has 41 and the county has 38. So we have more than a city county combined with the same population. So both the county and the city have more. And so they're like doubling people counts, because if they were consolidated, they'd just be running on one of those people counts. So there are some savings in that. I mean, there are, like I tell people, there's negatives with everything. So you're going to have some people lose jobs, because that's the only way you can save money, is you can't keep 80 people on workforce and keep going. The second negative is, this is a marriage. If we consolidate the city and the county, you can't make changes for 3 years, and you can only make them at 3 years if you get a majority petition, however that goes. You have to check with the voter group. And here's the thing, after that 3 years, you will have consolidated all of the assets, and then it's like a divorce. You have to divide things up. So that's the negative if you're not happy with it in 10 years. But Anaconda Deer Lodge has been doing it since the 70s. I don't know how long Butte Silverbow's been doing it, because they're much larger, so I didn't look at them. The other negative I kind of saw in it, I didn't see. People asked me about, well, the city's being sued by all these people. Why should the county pay for that? Well, good news. That's not a negative. Because whatever debt the county has when they come in and whatever debt the city has when they come in stays with them, and it kind of becomes a bond that they have to pay off. So it doesn't get absorbed. And then somebody complained about, well, you're going to make Ritchie carry the weight of Glendive. No, because Ritchie's a separate municipality. So it's not going to carry the weight of Glendive. We can't interfere with another municipality even if we consolidate. It doesn't work that way. And so I was like, a lot of the negatives people have perceived, they're not necessarily negatives. Are there negatives? Yes, and I can see that. And like one of the people who wrote me said he felt like, in the town of 4,000, we have 8 commissioners, and he doesn't feel like you can talk to any of them, and they're not really representing us. So if we consolidate the county and one person's representing 2,000, are they really going to represent us? And I said, well, you vote just like you do in the city. So if you don't think the person who's representing you is doing their job, then you vote them out. That's the whole point of voting. And you just have to get that in people's heads. And I think the other thing in the county and the city is people under the age of 40 aren't participating. They're not voting. I mean, our population in the county is 10,000, and during a presidential election, like from the original vote I saw online, I haven't looked back, the same day 2,600 people cast a ballot. Mm-hmm. So there's maybe 600 to 1,000 kids in that 10,000 range. So that leaves 9,000 adults that could be voting, and 2,600 voted. So we have to really do a better job of getting, the younger people involved. And I get it. They don't have time for it. They're struggling to survive. They're working 2 jobs, trying to pay bills. But they have to get out, vote, and make their voices heard, or nothing will change for them.
Well, and I've actually talked to quite a few people that are not registered to vote.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to them that, because they say, well, my voice doesn't count. Your voice counts at your local level. Your voice won't count at the high level, no, because Montana doesn't have the electoral college votes. But your voice counts at this lower level. That includes when people talk about how school bonds are being passed and your taxes are being raised. Well, it's because you didn't vote no or you didn't vote yes. That's your problem. You need to register to vote. That's why your taxes are being raised. You know, you have to go out there and register to vote. Doesn't mean you have to vote in every dang election. Just vote.
Yeah.
Like, if it's something important, go and vote. If it's something you don't care about, okay. Because you know what? I don't know one person that has not skipped one line on their voter thing when they go to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit there's been times where I'm like, I don't know either of these people, and I don't feel confident voting, so I'll skip that line.
And you can do that. And this is what I tell people, because I compare it to this. How many people are raising children in this town? I'm not going to do anything to raise my own children because my voice doesn't matter, because it doesn't help all of the children of Glendive. That makes no sense. And when you say, I'm not going to vote because my voice doesn't count, what you're really saying is, I'm going to let my own house fall apart because I don't like the way the other kids are being raised. And by not voting locally, you're letting your own house fall apart because you're upset about how other things are being done. Whereas if you register vote and you vote, then you have a hand in raising the town to the way you want it to be.
And I'll admit, those are usually the first people that are complaining, well, we don't have this and we don't have that. Well, show up.
Yeah.
Show up and speak your voice. Show up.
Well, it seems to be...
not to interrupt you, but like when Teresa was mayor and I took myself there and started recording on Facebook Live, all of a sudden people started to show up. Why does it take a video to make people to show up, to voice their opinions? You know,
We're a very social media driven community, though,
and most
that
small
is where
towns
we
are.
yeah, and
it's
that's
very
where we
clicky.
engage.
It's very clicky on their
But we
the
do
way they
engage
is.
that way here. You know,
It is, and that's why a lot of people were upset that on the Zoom that the city does, they don't allow comments or questions.
Well, that most government entities don't do that.
Right.
Unless you're paying a mediator to sit there and kick people out of the meeting, which they're not, because they're not paying a social media person. They're not paying that. Only larger cities kind of do that stuff, and it has its positives and its negatives, because here's the thing: when people are keyboard warriors, they get a little crazy.
Believe me, our Facebook groups show that in this community.
Yeah, so I understand why they don't want to do that, but also, it's small town living. If you can email your comments to other people that are willing to go to the meetings and read them, they can sign up for 2 slots, one for themselves, one for you. You can email it to the city, and then if they're not reading your comments, you can bring that issue to the state or to the county, either one. Because, if you do a public comment in writing via email, and I don't know what Montana's laws are, but a lot of states, they don't have to do anything that you send through voicemail or phone calls. It only counts if you email. And then they have rules how long you have to answer an email. So like with the Senate, I think it's like the United States Senate, it's 72 hours. So if you email your senator's office, they have 72 hours to respond until
I'm
they're
going
in
on
trouble.
4 years with no response.
Oh, well, I got one in 24 hours, so. But there are rules like that, so then you can take it, and, like, there's all sorts of ways to file complaints. Not that I want you filing complaints, but I just, it's so important that you get involved and you say what you want. Because we are social media driven, like our committee, I'm going to make some educational videos about the different forms of government when I get back in 2 weeks, and I'm going to just do what I did in the workshops at the meetings, where I teach on the different forms of government. I'm going to start posting them to Facebook so that people can understand what their choices are, and then maybe they'll want to voice them. And I have taken the Facebook comments or Facebook messages, which aren't really official public comments, and I've made them in the meetings, which is why we moved from City Hall to the Kearney Center, because so many people on Facebook were upset. And so I said, okay, majority of it was ADA related. So I said, well, let's find a place that is, ADA agreeable. And so we did that. And then a couple of them were just because people were angry at the City Hall and didn't want to be there. And so that kind of caused a brouhaha. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to upset people at City Hall. My leaving City Hall wasn't a critique on the council. My wanting to leave City Hall was because we wanted to create the most neutral environment where people felt comfortable coming and sharing what they wanted for the future of Glendive. And that was the whole reason behind it. Yeah.
So this Saturday,
Yes.
where are we at for our time?
Probably too long.
Oh, we're past our 30 minutes. We're doing good.
Yeah.
So we're going to be at Buzzard
Buzzard
Days.
Days.
We'll have it's an informational table.
Yeah.
And we'll have that set up. And then they can people can email you again at
City of Glendive Study at yahoo.com. Yeah. Sorry, I use Yahoo, people.
yeah, or
People
Rick
make fun of my
Holden.
MSN, and I'm like, listen, I've had that email for 29 years. Back off.
So, or for the county review, Rick Holden, RICH at midrivers.com.
I kept telling people rich at midrivers.com, and they're like, who is that? And I was like, it's Rick Holden, but it spells rich. I was like, that's how the email is. So.
And when she told me to respond, I was like,
Yeah.
I had to think about it. All right, so this is Podcast on the Porch. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Maria, for being
Yes,
our
thank you
special
for coming.
guest.
Our pleasure.
And as always, enjoy the night. Stay safe, everybody. Tonight is supposed to be the pink moon. So maybe we might be able to see it with all the smoke. Probably not.
Yeah.
So let's be, everybody.